Hello everyone. So today we are going to do the Leetcode question of today. Actually, I'm meeting a streak, so this is the 99th day, and I will be doing it as well as learning it from ChatGPT itself, and then explaining and solving it on the way. So that is what I thought of doing. I've already done it one time. We were practicing, so I will be understanding, also explaining you guys the same thing. So first we will go through the question by ourselves. So the question number is 2169, count operations to obtain 0. So in this question we will be using Euclidean algorithm basically, in which I will give you a gist of the question, where the question states that if we are given a two non-negative integers number 1 and number 2, and they're asking if in an operation number 1 is greater than or equal to number 2, then we must subtract number 2 from number 1, otherwise do the opposite of it, and hence have to obtain 0 value either of number 1 or number 2 in least possible operations. That is what they have said. Basically, if I take you to the example here, this one, so the input is 2, number 1 is 2, number 2 is 3, but number 1 should be greater than or equals to number 2. So and output is 3. Explanation is, for operation 1, number 1 is equals to 2 and number 2 equals to 3. So since number 2 is greater than number 1, we subtract number 1 from number 2. We do the opposite of it, as they said you must subtract number 2 from number 1, otherwise subtract number 1 from number 2. So here we are subtracting number 1 from number 2. We are doing the opposite of it, because number 2 is greater than number 1, and hence we get number 1 equals to 2 and number 2 equals to 3 minus 2 equals to 1. Now both are 2 and 1. Now again number 1 is greater than number 2, and hence we subtract them, and in those way we find that number 1 is 0 at the end, and hence in 3 operations we get at least one number which is 0. So now let's go to ChatGPT first. I've already run this question, so I will be just taking the ChatGPT output and explaining you guys also. So this one is the one. So this is the question, and it is giving the summary in short, that you are given two non-negative integers, which I have already told you. In an operation, if number 1 is greater than equal to number 2, do num1 equals to num1 minus num2, else do num2 equals to num2 minus num1. So the first approach is, if number 1 is greater than equals to number 2, subtracting number 2 from number 1 repeatedly is equivalent to doing integer division. So the most important thing of this problem, the concept is this itself, the repeated division, which is equivalent to integer division, repeated subtraction. Suppose we have number 17, okay, and we have to subtract it from 5, and we have to see that how many times do we have to subtract it to get 0. So technically, if we do integer division of 17 and 5, we find 3 with remainder of 2. So that means we have to subtract 5 from 17 5 times, then we get 2, and then we subtract the other two numbers, and then we get 0. So in this question we have to ensure num1 is greater than equal to number 2, and if it is not, then we have to swap the values number 1 and number 2, and then we do the integer division of them, and once we find after integer division, then we do the normal division, and we repeat it until it becomes 0. So we have got the Python solution and the Java solution. Since I am preparing for placements and internships along with the process, my goal is that, so primarily I will focusing on Java. You can also go to the Python solution one. The question is on the solution is almost like the concept is saying we will be using while loop, in that we will be using the if statement to do our solution. So we will first declaring the class solution, then int counter operations, int number 1 number 2, and then we will be stating that answer is 0. The final answer that we want is 0, we will be assuming. And then after that we will be running a while loop, where we will be assuming that number 1 and number 2 both are greater than 0, because that is the condition that we are having those numbers, and then we have to make either of them 0 in the least number of operations, and we have to give the number of operations that are required. So we will be running a if statement, where if number 2 is greater than number 1, normally in the question number 1 should be greater than or equals to number 2. Here we can see number 1 should be greater than or equals to number 2. Therefore we will be cancelling out the third option, which is number 2 is if number 2 is greater than number 1, then we will be swapping it. So we will be taking a temporary integer variable and saving it in number 1, and then we will be declaring number 1 equals to number 2, and hence number 1 2 equals to temporary. So we have swapped it if number 1 is less than number 2. Otherwise the same thing will happen, that number 1 is greater than equal to number 2. And as after this, answer equals to plus equals to number 1 divided by number 2. We will be dividing it, and finally we will be doing the remainder part, and hence finding how many times it is required to get it 0. So the example is, we have taken number 1 5, number 2 4. 5 is greater than equal to number 4, so we will be dividing 5, we will doing integer division of 5 divided by 4 equals to 1. Then answer equals to plus equals to 1, and hence 5 divided by 4 equals to 1. Now 1 and 4 are there, so we will be swapping the numbers, because now number 1 is less than number 2, so we will be swapping it so that number 1 gets greater than or equal to number 2. Then we will be dividing again, and then finally we will getting 0, because it gets stopped, and hence total operations are 5. The time complexity is 0 log number 1 number 2, because the values shrink like the Euclidean algorithm. Now, since I have said that I am not able to understand it and teach me the detailed concept, as I am trying to land a internship related to SD or something, and I am from TIT college, all that rant that I have given to ChatGPT. So now they have given me the same code, but obviously with line by line explanation. So that will be better. So if you are a complete beginner, just like me, because I am more of a problem solver, so I start with solving problems and then understand it, and then understand the concepts. And with ChatGPT and all that stuff, it is like even easier. Like if you start with video and plays, it is good for some people, but for me, I will just stuck up in the tutorial hell. So normally what I do is, I am trying to understand it on a daily basis only by solving one or two questions, but understanding all the core concepts behind it. So that is the purpose of my this video series also, that I will be creating by sharing my knowledge and also being in the community, so that others can also understand the same, and also we can learn together. So back to the solution. So the solution is class solution, public and count operations. Now we will declare number 1 and number 2. So the class solution is a standard wrapper class which we use for Leetcode and Java solutions. And the public and count operations, it is a function header that we're using, which takes two integers, number 1 and number 2, and returns total count operations in the form of an integer, which is 1 2 3 4 5 whatever. And then we like we take int ans answer equals to 0, which means we are initializing a counter ans to accumulate how many subtraction operations we have effectively performed, the number of subtraction of operations required. And then we will be running a while loop, where if number 1 and number 2 both are greater than 0, so they will be keep looping as long as neither number is 0, and they stop once it becomes 0, and hence we get the number of operations through ans, which we have initialized earlier. So if number 2 is greater than number 1, which is not the condition, since we want number 1 to be the larger or equal number for a batching trick to correct. This is a batching trick, you have to understand it, and you can keep it in your notes or something, so that you understand that it is a trick of batching, and you can create pattern for placement. So if number 2 is greater than number 1, swap them so that number 1 can be greater than or equal to number 2. How we are swapping them? We are taking a temporary variable to help swap values, and then we are moving the smaller one into num1, and then original num1 into num2, and that's how swap is done. Now after the while loop, if we come out of the while loop, this is ans that is initialized earlier is there, ans plus equals to number 1 divided by number 2. So the key step is number 1 divided by number 2 is how many times number 2 can be subtracted from number 1. If we do the integer division of number 1 and number 2, since number 1 is already greater than equals to number 2, so with the integer division, we can through the quotient and ignoring the remainder, we can find the number of times the number of minus operations are required, so that we can keep it to a minimal value by which we can subtract it. So we are using the many operations, and we add that count to ans directly, and after that, after subtracting number 1 divided by number 2 times, then leftover is number 1 divided by number 2. This becomes a new number 1. Note that after swap earlier, so percentage is valid and reduces number 1, and that's how the loop is ended, and we can repeat it if either number reaches 0, we exit. So that's how it is. And return ans means returns the total count operations performed, because in the beginning we have initialized ans that the total count operations as of now is 0. So after that it will return the final answer. So like it is giving the total complexity and correctness and everything. So if we ask what are the 4 concepts behind this question from a beginner TSA learner point of view POV. So he's saying, so the conceptually what are happening is we are given two numbers, we keep performing the same operation, subtract the smaller number from larger number and until one of them becomes 0. This is the simple question. So the DSA fundamentals that are being taught in this program is control flow. We are using while loop here and a conditional statement. We are learning flow control and then how to swap a variable, because this type of questions, swapping variables are often asked for internships at some companies, especially in Java or C++, because these are fundamental languages which help you learn memory management and dynamic memory allocation and everything. So like this is how we swap a variable, if number 1, number 2 and all. And then we are learning the concept of integer division and modulo mathematical optimization. So basically if the problem wants you to subtract number 2 from number 1 by 1, but that's inefficient, so we do the integer division of that and we understand, like suppose if the number 1 is 100 and number 2 is 5, so that's 20 subtractions. Okay, I'm sorry for being too fast, the pace will get slower with time. Then the concept 4 that we have learned is Euclidean algorithm, which is a mathematical pattern recognition algorithm. This whole logic is identical to the greatest common divisor algorithm. Euclid's rule says greatest common divisor of a comma b is equals to greatest common divisor of b comma a divided by b. So this is very important. You can just keep it as it is in your notes, so that until 1 becomes 0, this is what is followed and this is what we have done in a question, and that's the same pattern they are using there also. The time complexity intuition is the while loop doesn't run endlessly, because every time we do number 1, number 2, the value of number 1 shrinks drastically. So it is also good on the, it is very efficient on a time complexity point of view, because every time we are doing the floor division of number 1 and number 2, it the value of number 1 shrinks drastically, and hence it's very efficient. So this is the concept and this is the problem. So finally what I do every day is I also ask ChatGPT, please provide me problems like these from popular coding platforms with their direct links. Which are asked in companies for placements and internships. The deadlines are company for placement internships. So these are 10 beginner friendly problems that you guys can check out, like the Leetcode of 2 integers, Leetcode basic calculator and all. So yeah, that is what I do, and I will surely understand it and study it, and maybe we will do other problems also. So I searched it up only because for you guys, and like the here's the list of similar problems. I will ask it to give it. So now let's keep the platform only till Leetcode, because like I've just started Leetcode. Since you can see I've just only solved 99 almost problems, so like I will keep it to Leetcode itself with all the topic wise questions that we have learned, and then get advanced there, so I will add it in the description. And also sorry to, but we have also need to write code. So let's write the code. Obviously I won't be able to write it without understanding anything, so let's do it. Class solution, then public int count operations, int num1 num2. Okay, class solution, public int count operations count operations, count operations, no one in. Acha, okay, yeah, we have to declare. These are silly mistakes, and I am doing this with you guys so that you guys can also understand it and see what are silly mistakes we can do. And obviously, you can see I'm kind of copying, which is fine if you're just starting it like mine. The main thing is concept, understanding the concept, and doing it on the go, and doing it on a consistent basis. I've also started just like few months back itself, so now I thought let's do it with the community. While no one greater than 0 and 2 greater than 0, while no one greater than 0 and num2 greater than 0. Yeah, right. We have declared the ANS answer value to see the number of operations. Then we declare parenthesis. Now we are running a if num2 greater than num1, yes, if no1 less than num2, less than num2, right. We have to take care of these braces, that's why I'm checking again and again. Then the swapping variable part, then there's modular division and floor division, simple, these two things. While loop, swapping these two, it is seriously a very easy problem, that's why it comes under the easy topic, but it can be asked in fresher roles because it has some good concepts. Yesterday also I did a problem of gray code or something. It was a hard one, I will show you. In temp equals to num1, and temp equals to num1, then num1 equals to num2, and num2 equals to temp. Let's see if we have swapped it properly. Num1 equals to num2, num2 equals to temp. Yeah, perfect. Now I will be writing the ANS function. Okay, num2 ANS function I have to see properly because like it can be easily be mistaken. So num1 divided by num2. Okay, num1 divided by num2, num1 divided by num2, and then num1 equals to. So in this video itself you guys would have understood that I also don't know shit about it, but I'm doing it, and just like by understanding and also explain, because like you must have heard that if you explain something to someone, even while learning it for the first time, although I have learned I have gone through the problem earlier also before creating this video, I would be honest with it, but still if you still teach someone or try to explain it, then you are better able to understand it. So that is what I'm trying to do here. So I'm just letting you know, I'm not like being a made up being a guy who is trying to be a know-it-all person. So like I'm just letting you know as earlier itself. So let's try to run it. Error, and error, good amount of. We got error on line 1. Okay, yeah. This error, then error class into the recorder field accepted. 916. Let's see. And temp equals to num1, num1 equals to num2. Num2 equals to temp. So we have got an error. Int or let's check ChatGPT itself. What's the issue with it? check this code. What's the issue then? Public and count operation. Public and count operations. Number num2. You wrote public int count operations. Number num2. Exactly same. The third names must exactly match what Leetcode expects. Okay, अच्छा. Crazy. So here it is. It was just a small error here, which is a very rookie error, and this one is the error. So yeah, we have done it with 100% base time complexity and 0 millisecond. You must be thinking that this guy is just copied from ChatGPT, right? But I also try to understand the concept, and I feel by this way I'm able to learn better. And I will be again revising all this stuff again tomorrow before starting the next problem of the day. So let's see you tomorrow. Thank you.